And then I said to him, they're called memories. Cal? Stop playing with me, Cal. Stop playing with me. Oh my God. Cal's dead. I left him in the closet to die. And now he's not with us. There's a new Drake album out, y'all! A new Drake album! Yay! Hi everyone, Winthony Stratego here, the internet's busiest music nerd. And it's time for a review of the new Your Old Droog EP, Kinison EP. Your Old Droog is a relatively new, up-and-coming, underground, clever, and deep-voiced New York rapper who caught a bit of buzz last year off an EP that had him confused with one of hip-hop's greatest voices, Nas. In a sense, it must be kind of flattering to know that your flow, your wordplay, and your inflection are so together that people would actually assume you're one of hip-hop's greatest voices in disguise. But the problem with that is once you reveal yourself, you're no longer what people really expected. You're someone completely different, not the rap god that they already had a vested interest in. That's cult of personality, man. Still, Droog continued to release some pretty solid music in 2014, like the Hoodie Weather single with Prodigy of Mobb Deep, one of my favorite hip-hop songs of last year. And at the tail end of 2014, he dropped a self-titled record that was pretty good. Maybe it had a little bit too much filler on there. It was just maybe a little too long, not enough diversity to justify the length. But Droog was still improving his wordplay, dishing out more thematic, conceptual songs, going into tracks with less non-sequitur rhymes and more overarching themes. And that's the case for this new EP over here as well. This is a rock-themed rap EP. 11 cuts, 30 minutes, and even before listening to these songs, the intro and the track titles really set the tone with songs such as Rage Against the Machine and Porno for Pyros and Sonic Youth. And the introductory track over here is essentially a vocal clip of comedian Sam Kinison ranting about rap music, saying that rappers aren't really talented because they aren't playing any instruments. And he was saying this to a roaring crowd, and this was a very common and popular opinion in the 80s and the 90s, something rap had to overcome as it gained more mainstream and pop appeal during the bling era in the 2000s. So there was a time when rock music was more dominant and the culture was kind of shitting on rap music, unfortunately. And Droog doesn't take this opportunity to clap back or say, "Ah, told ya." Instead, he has reverence for the genre. And his appreciation runs deep, especially given the very generous Captain Beefheart sample on the opening track here, Blood. There's a sparse, smooth drum beat on this track, some beautiful female vocal samples, a nice, very deep bass line, and Droog just drops one golden line after another. My favorite piece of wordplay on this track, and maybe this entire EP, is when he says, "These hoods that even Eric would get clapped in." Eric Clapton. He makes a shot at conscious rappers who are secretly egotistical even though publicly they are humble, and multisyllabic fast flowers as well, favoring instead a slower, more engaging delivery where his wordplay can be a little flashier and just give you a lot of moments. And I love that Droog sounds old school, but he doesn't sound afraid to engage with this new brave world of hip-hop. And not in a 100%, "Oh, how come nobody's wearing Timbs anymore" kind of way. There's a great line on Porno for Pyros where he says, "Saying my style's dated is like checking to see if wine's expired." He makes knowledgeable references to punk rock as well as death metal on this track too, and takes shots at Papa Roach fans and Incubus fans as well. On the song Sonic Youth, not only does he actually reflect upon youth and vanity a little bit, but I think his rhymes get a little kooky here and maybe a little MF Doomish. There's one line where he says his diet's macrobiotic and he's kind of talking about himself in the third person over a very villainous string sample. Sounds very Doom inspired. I love all the nostalgic references on this track and other tracks here too, but especially on Rage Against the Machine, which is quite literally a retelling of his days, his younger days, as a very passionate Rage Against the Machine fan, wanting that debut album with the guy on fire on the cover, feeling a slight disappointment when Evil Empire came out, listening to their stuff on those wraparound headphones, and even educating himself with the Rage Against the Machine reading list, which I kind of did too. I had to turn this track off. It was just too real. And even though earlier on the EP, Droog criticizes these flashy, fast-flowing rappers, he kind of does this himself on the Freeway Fire track. It's just him straight spitting, not a whole lot of structure on this track, no big chorus or anything like that, but he just drops one fast rhyme after another, but he still manages to keep up his usual quality of wordplay. The song is short but lyrically dense, and that's kind of how this EP as a whole is. In this amount of time, Droog says twice as much as some rappers do. Even though I am a little bit let down by the sort of tongue-in-cheek gentrify my hood, I wish this track had some more lyrics to offer. It seems a little lightweight in comparison to other songs in terms of bars when it comes to quality and quantity, but the song itself is still kind of funny, with Droog talking about how convenient he finds all these newly opened coffee shops that have opened in his neighborhood, and how he sort of crushes on these baristas. And there's the track Get the Paper too, which has an old school Beastie Boys instrumental, but he rocks it very nicely with this wordplay about getting the paper as in money, or getting the paper as in the newspaper. It's a bit of greed as well as nostalgia and talking about news and just sort of the being, the essence, the in his life surrounding the newspaper. He continues to drop solid bars in the outro track here as well. I agree that Droog has a decidedly old school sound, and that's naturally going to make some people who want to hear something new, who don't want to dwell in the past, sort of ignore him and just throw him into the back of their minds. But if you dig beyond the outside, the outer shell, the aesthetic that he creates music in, you're going to hear that he's kind of eclectic, eccentric, and he has great wordplay. I like the song topics on this EP. I think all the rock references made for a great theme. His flows are solid. Every track has at least a few bars that I'm sort of drawn to or that I remember. There are a few tracks here where he's just a little more amped, a little more energetic, and that's great. It brings variety to this EP, but what I like about Droog most is that he's low-key, and he's the kind of rapper that reminds you of how great the poetic component of this genre can be. I'm feeling a light to decent 8 on this thing. Transition. If you've given this EP a listen, what did you think of it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. Anthony Fantano, your old Droog, Kinison EP, forever.